Thank you guys for tuning in to watch this third episode of this series called Fear. Thank you for sticking around. Thank you for the questions, the support. Really appreciate it. If you're watching this for the first time, please kindly consider subscribing. The subscribe button is right below. Imeandikwa in red, subscribe. Click, it will turn gray na itakwambia subscribe. It is free of charge, and that is the biggest way you show me love and support. So far, we have discussed two types of fear. We've discussed the primal fear. We've discussed the irrational fear. And the primal fear is where we say that this is fear that is inborn. We are born with it. There is so little we can do about it. This is where the phobias lie. So that there are people who will be hydrophobic, they fear water. There are people who fear insects and spiders, and we will say them to be arachnophobic. So these are fears that we are born with, and there is so little we can do about it. And then we discussed about the rational fear, and this is where we say that this is fear that is caused by a danger that is actually real, not a perceived danger. And we gave an example of a gunman or a person attacking you with a knife. These are dangers that you can actually see. These are not things that you imagine. And so we said basically everyone handles the rational fear in two major ways. There are those people who will fight, there are those people who will fight. So it is either you fight or you flight. And both these things are chemical reactions in the body. This is caused by adrenaline in the body. So adrenaline will tell one person to run away, and the same adrenaline will tell the other person, you can fight this. That is the rational fear. And today we discussed the third and final category of fear, and that is the irrational fear. And to me, this is where the way they say the elephant in the room, this is where the elephant in the room is. Because in the irrational fear, this is where, this is the type of fear that has actually robbed destinies, as we began by saying in episode 1. This is the type of fear that makes us not progress in life as we should. And I want to kickstart with examples of the irrational fear, so that at least we can pick it up from there. Talking to friends, there are friends who will tell you that I am afraid of, for example, starting a business. It could be an M-Pesa shop, it could be a butchery, whatever kind of business. But when you interrogate them further, the reason why they are afraid of venturing into business is either through experience, that they have experienced something terrible with business before, or a friend or a close person to them has experienced something terrible with their business. So that maybe kuna mtu alianza M-Pesa shop and then it flopped, or you didn't pick, they had to close shop. This experience creates fear in this individual. So that even if they were thinking of beginning an M-Pesa shop, then they start questioning themselves. Kama fulani, kama so and so alifanya hii kitu, and then haikufaulu ikaanguka. Why should I risk my hard-earned money into the same thing that so and so tried and failed? And so you find them giving up on venturing into these businesses. Then there is maybe another example of probably a person who wants to enter into the institution of marriage. And you will find so many stories, and especially in our generation, there are so many issues that are affecting marriages. There are so many issues that are affecting us. And these issues actually end up causing people to make certain decisions. So that if for example my marriage is not working, maybe I am not taking care of my family, I'm irresponsible, I am unfaithful, I am all these negative things, then as a friend, you will look at my marriage and be like, I don't think I want to enter into this kind of institution. I'd rather stay not married than get myself into such kind of trouble. Because as a friend, I have a level of influence towards the decisions you make. And I think people need to recognize and realize that friendship is so deep, and that is why it is actually even said, show me your friends and I'll tell you who you are. Because birds of a feather, they actually flock together. So, if we discuss with you and I'm not encouraging you, for example, to get into the institution of marriage, then what I am doing is actually creating fear, knowingly or unknowingly, in your space. So that when you come into that space of wanting to make this step, you start, your mind will start reminding you of the things that we have discussed, things you've seen me experience, things you've seen me say. How do we go about managing this type of fears that actually happen?
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. First of all, I'd like to thank our viewers for supporting us this far through their viewership. As you have said, we are looking into irrational fear, and it's a real problem in society. It is something that is there, we cannot gainsay it. And it is not a problem to have irrational fear. It's only human. Everybody will have to face it. But the most important thing is to know how really to deal with it. When we began this series, we said that it's not so much how we can do away with fear, but how we can manage fear, learn how to live with it. Now, this irrational fear, it is called irrational because it actually is fear that doesn't make sense. It is out of stimuli that don't make sense. You have said that we take the society, things that are happening in the society, and we superimpose them on our own situations, and we imagine that they've already happened in our situations, and that causes us to be fearful. It causes us not to take certain steps because we fear that whatever happened to so and so might also happen to me. That is a real fear. For myself, of course, I have experienced it because I exist in society, and I have, before you do anything, of course, you have to look at how people that have ventured into that thing have fared, so that you can make a rational decision. However, the society that we are in today is awash with a lot of negativity. So much so that if you want to make a decision based on what is happening in society, you will always have that fear of failure, because more often than not, many things are failing, especially in the age that we exist in. There are things that one needs to look into with a little bit of sense, even though those things happened to other people, but doesn't mean necessarily that they will happen to everybody alike. Because, true to say, every individual is a subset of a complete set of society. That we are, a society is made up of individuals. and it is not the individual that determines what society is like. It is a collective, the society is, if we take, like, for example, society ethics, they are based on individual ethics, collective, a collective of them get them in, you get what the society is like. If we say that this society is rotten, it is not everybody that is rotten, but of course a greater percentage of that society is rotten. So I am of the view that it is actually possible to overcome these fears. It is actually possible to overcome these fears, but it will happen only on the part of the individual, being decisive that I want to remain rational, even if the things that I am looking at, the examples that I'm looking at are not looking so good. However, I can learn from the mistakes of those that failed before me. The question is not if so-and-so failed, why should I venture into it? The question rather should be, if so-and-so failed, how can I do it differently so that it doesn't fail? Now that is the question that we need to ask ourselves. So it is possible actually to overcome these fears by remaining positive even amid negativities. In order for one to do that, then you need to develop some deep sense of self-confidence, something that lacks in our society, especially amongst the youths, because we fail to believe in ourselves that we can. Because if so-and-so that is older than myself tried it and it didn't work, so-and-so that was more experienced than myself tried it and it didn't work, it therefore follows without saying that if I try it, it will fail. Absolutely not. It is possible for you to surmount the challenges that this person got first, because most probably they failed because they had not seen these problems from afar. But as for you, you have a better case scenario to learn from. Look at it and know that they took this path. I can take at least a detour and follow a different path. Probably I will end up succeeding. If anything, this life is all about taking risks. Life in itself is a risk. The moment you are born, you risk dying, the moment you keep quiet, you risk being judged a fool. The moment you talk too much, you risk being called a parrot or something. So life in totality is a risk. And so it is important that we know that even though, yes, these fears are important because they trigger our minds to think on better ways to do things, but we should not let these fears to drown our capacity to venture into certain things. Getting into a marriage is a risk in itself. However, we can get into marriage and succeed, even though the risk is there, but we can calculate the risk and take the risk, but positively. So my view is that the individual needs to evaluate himself or herself and have some deep sense of confidence that yes, this fear is there, but I can overcome it if I remain positive, even though the society causes me to see things negatively. So that is how I would say.
Thank you so much. There are things that are coming out from this discussion. The one thing that is outstanding for me is self-confidence, like you have said. Because if you are not confident as an individual, then that is where everything begins to go downhill. So I think for me, from what you've just said, the one thing that stands out is that we need to be extremely confident in ourselves, confident in our capabilities, confident that even though so-and-so tried and failed, then I am a different individual. The second most important thing after self-confidence is actually learning from my friend's mistakes.
Yes, yeah.
The best example I would give for that is the guy who invented the light bulb.
Yeah.
This guy tried 1,000 times or so,
Yeah.
and every time that he failed, he actually says that he knew how not to do it,
Yeah.
so that it was not a failure.
Exactly.
I think it is changing perception.
Yes.
You just change your perception so that if I try this and it fails, then I have not failed. I have actually known something new. That if I do this next time, then I will actually fail.
Yes.
And so, because I don't believe anybody is a fool, then you will not do the same thing that this person did, expecting different results. So I think self-confidence, a huge belief in yourself, and learning from the mistakes of others. Every person in this world has or is battling one fear or the other.
Yes.
It doesn't matter whether you are the least in society or the most in society. We are all battling one or the other fear.
True.
So I think for me, I would look at primal fear as this is fear that you didn't choose to be born with. For example, if I'm afraid of spiders, I didn't make an application and say that I want to be afraid of spiders. It is something that you realize as you grow. And the best way to handle these kinds of fears is identify the source of fear. For example, if I know that I'm afraid of insects, then I will stay away from insects. And even when I find myself in a situation that is out of my control, then I actually know that this thing makes me afraid, or this thing makes me react in a certain manner. And so I will stay away from this thing. It is as simple as that. Just stay away from anything that you identify that makes you afraid. This is for the primal fears, especially the phobias.
Yeah.
When we talk about the rational fear, of course we have, there are two main ways that we have said every individual will react. You either fight or you flight. And this is again extremely different to all of us because we are different personalities. We are extremely, and we react to situations very differently. And so what my adrenaline will tell me to do is not necessarily what it will tell you to do.
Yes.
But basically that is how we react. But now coming to the most critical part of this discussion, the irrational fear.
Yes.
I think that is where you've really summed it up quite well. Believe in yourself.
Sure.
Believe in yourself. You know, the Bible tells us that we are more than conquerors, but more often than not, we don't take it with the weight that it requires.
Sure.
And I believe, even if you're watching this and you're not a Christian, I believe your religion also tells you that God views you as more than a conqueror.
Yes.
And so I believe it begins there. That as Jesse, I believe in myself. I believe in my capabilities. So that I will look at my positives more than my negatives. And that will actually keep fear at bay.
Yes.
The second thing is learning from the mistakes that you have done or the mistakes that others have done. In fact, it is often said that it is better to learn from the experiences of others. You don't have to experience how hurting it is for a business to close, and you have a friend who has gone through that.
True.
From your discussion, just pick, be wise. Pick things that they say, listen carefully, listen more, so that you can pick the details and know how not to do that thing, so that you don't repeat the same error. Coming back to religion, I believe every single religion teaches this, and especially for us Christians, the Bible, our manual, has stated clearly and explicitly that we should not be afraid. In fact, God tells us not to be afraid. I am not sure about this, but I would like you to tell me I have heard it being said that the Bible actually says that do not fear 365 times. I am not sure about it. I do not want to lie. But if it is true, please confirm in the comments below. And I have heard preachers say that this is do not be afraid for every single day of the year. So that every single day you wake up, January 1st to December 31st, God is telling you that do not be afraid. So I think we, apart from believing in ourselves, there is God who believes in us and who is telling us, do not be afraid. Even when the situation seems hopeless, I think when we come to our end, then that is the beginning of our God. So I think that when you come to your end, just remember and let it ring in your mind that God above is telling me that I should not be afraid, that everything is okay. Have friends like we are doing, like we have done from the first part of this episode, of this series. What we are doing is discussing, having a conversation with each other, being vulnerable to each other, saying that, oh, I fear heights, or I fear this, or this is my experience, or I have experienced this. We are just having a conversation. And through this, we are actually learning from each other and encouraging each other. That even if, so kumbe Monene alipitia this and this, basi hata mimi nitatoboa. So I think for me, the other most important thing would be to find friends or people, let me say people, who you can open up to, who you can talk to, people who you can go to and say to them that, by the way, I am afraid of this and this. They may not have a solution. In fact, they may not even give you anything in terms of material help or anything. But just listening to you, I think, makes a whole huge difference. Because I think human beings, one thing that we crave for is a listening ear. So if I can sit here and that, Monene, you can listen to me, I think that is one way to handle this situation. Just get a person who you can trust, who you can be vulnerable to, who you can run to when you feel this emotion overwhelming you, and just pour out your heart. Because they say again, something that is half share is actually half sold. So I think just find a person in your life who you can share, maybe even not one, a person or persons in your life who you can run to. Be mindful in terms of your surrounding, your environment. When you are mindful, you realize when you are beginning to get overwhelmed by this emotion. So just be mindful of yourself. And I will link this to mental health. Take care of your mental health. Because some of these fears are actually blown out of proportion when we are not in the right state of mind. Mental health has been an issue. People are not talking about it. People are hiding. And it is causing trouble rather than giving answers and solutions. And if you are not in the right state of mind, and then something happens that gives you this unpleasant emotion of being afraid, then it will actually now blow everything out of proportion. So I think for me, the last thing would be to be mindful or to take care of your mental health. We have been discussing about fear, but there is a very thin line between fear and anxiety. A general explanation about these two things would be, fear is something, or this unpleasant emotion that we experience, that is caused by either danger, harm, or pain. There is something that you can identify and say, this is what is causing me to be afraid. However, anxiety is the directly opposite of fear. Because anxiety, for me, I would describe it in very plain terms as future-oriented fear. For instance, I'd say I'm anxious because I don't know what I will eat tomorrow. I don't know what I will wear tomorrow. I don't know what my child will go to school with tomorrow. I don't know what I will pay school fees with tomorrow. Like, in all these statements, there is one underlying thing. It is in the future.
Yes.
So that there is something that is making me afraid, but it is not in the present.
Yeah.
I cannot quantify it. It is in the future. And so we are at a place where, especially as young people, we are so afraid of issues and things that are not actually in the present. So that we stop living in the present and we begin living in the future. And of course, what that does is that we become disoriented,
Yes.
we fail, we stop functioning. We basically stop functioning because of this thing called anxiety. We need to take care of our mental health. We need to take care of our bodies. We need to take care of ourselves. Because once we take care of ourselves, then this thing will not be as humongous as we perceive it to be. I will give you the final say,
Yeah.
so that you can bring this to a close.
It's been a nice discussion. It is very relevant and it is timely because it addresses a problem that is currently in the society.
Yes.
It is with us everywhere.
Mm.
So I would just like to say that fear is not a bad thing in itself. It's a good thing because when you become fearless, you become reckless. You need that fear to keep you in check so that you can sit down and think about things rationally and do things that will not harm you and will not harm other people. So it's all right to have fear, but it's not okay to let that fear to overwhelm you to a point of making your life to stagnate in one position. So to wrap it up, I would say that especially for the fear that we are discussing today, that irrational fear, basing it on the Word of God, it is important that we try to see what the Word says about us. Change your value systems. Do not let the society define your value systems.
Yes.
Let the Word of God define what you value and what your worth is.
Yes.
Because when the Word of God says that you are a chosen generation, you can do all things through Christ who strengthens you. Let that sink inside of you so that it can inspire you to have confidence in yourself, knowing that there is a God behind the difficult situations, behind the impossible situations, who can turn around those situations to be possible for you. So again, it is just a matter of having faith. Of course, certainties will always be there.
Yes.
There will never be a point where there is a perfect world, as we said, as we were beginning. So that is where your faith comes in. Your trust in a supreme being. Because where our strength fails, the strength of God is there to hold us and to guide us. Yeah, so it is possible to surmount these fears. It is possible to overcome them and to manage them to the levels that they are not destructive to our lives.
Yes.
But we can use them to constructively build our lives around them. Yeah, so let the fear be there. Of course, we can't do away with it because it is essential for it to be there, but don't let it drown you, don't let it bring you down. So also it is important to talk to people, get to share your fears with other people, get to hear what they will tell you about it.
Yes.
Pick the positives and learn from the negatives. That is the bottom line. Learn how to learn from the negatives. Learn not how to be drowned by the negatives. And also do not keep quiet with your fears. Everybody has a fear here and there, but it becomes easier when you share it with another person. You will get maybe a word of encouragement. You will get someone who tells you how to do it out of their own experience, and so it becomes easier for you to even manage such fears. Yeah, so to our viewers, we are eagerly waiting for the expert opinion that is coming in our next episode. So we were just giving our views as lay persons, but we believe that you also have your own views. We do not hold a monopoly of views. We know that you have your views. You can express them down there. You can put a comment as we wait for the expert that is coming to iron out issues. And we shall get to learn more together. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let me take this opportunity to really thank you. Thank you so much for gracing this channel. Thank you for shedding light and sharing your experiences. I really appreciate. Thank you for your time. Thank you so much for watching this far. Thank you for sticking around ever since we began episode 1 of Overcoming Fear series. I hope you have learned something this far. I have learned quite a lot. I have reminded myself quite a lot. And I think this is the reason why we exist, to keep reminding ourselves. As we say in this channel, this is where we inspire, we educate, we enlighten, and we motivate each other to be better versions of ourselves. And I believe that this series has done exactly that. This is us saying goodbye. However, in the final episode of this series, I will host a professional counselor who will now take us through the professional side of things. So I hope to see you then. Please stay tuned, tell a friend to tell a friend. And if you have not subscribed, that is the biggest gift that you can give me, by subscribing to this channel and sharing this content with those that you think may benefit from this discussion. Until next time, keep it here. Let us meet in the next episode. God bless. Thank you.